Hola, ¿qué tal? Espero que tu familia están todo bien. I'm glad to have you here for episode Dieciocho. Can't believe we've been together for 18 episodes, but welcome back to my channel. I have a very interesting and exciting for me topic to talk about today. And today I want to talk about what the difference is for going to church here in Spain versus the US as a Christian, as a believer. And so I want to unpack a couple things about things that I think are different in the US and Spain. This is all just kind of my opinion, of course. Religious topics are one where, you want to be careful not to offend someone. You are also just kind of sharing your heart. And so that's my intention here, is just to tell our story, our family's story of the differences that we see here in Spain compared to the US. I'd love to get your engagement in the comments. And so if there's anything you want to share on this topic, I'd love to have a conversation. And again, you can follow my family and our journey here living in Spain on Instagram at Go and Do Good. We can get on the phone if you're interested in moving to Spain and talk more about that, or I can send you my course. But first, let's jump right into today's episode 18. Just jump right into this conversation today. And so one of the main things that we have noticed as American family living in Spain is that the majority of churches here throughout Spain are Catholic. Now, I actually grew up Catholic. My dad is Catholic, my siblings are Catholic, and I went to Catholic school. So did my husband for a portion of our education. And we are not here actually as Catholics. We are here as non-denominational believers. And so my mom, when I was born, I was actually severely, I always forget English words now. I was much younger than my siblings. And so my mom decided to take me to non-denominational church with her. And so when we made that change, I no longer did say the sacraments. Like, I did not go through confirmation. I didn't do my first Holy Communion. I mean, those type of things I didn't complete in the Catholic Church. And those are some of the core differences. They're both under the field of Christianity. They both believe in God and Jesus Christ. The differences are that, they have things like the rosary beads, or the focuses on the Virgin Mary, or taking the Eucharist weekly, and the rituals, and a lot of the things that come along with Catholicism are not necessarily also in non-denominational churches. And so we were not able here in Madrid to find a non-denominational church, but we did join a Baptist church. So there are different denominations of Protestant churches. So Baptist or Pentecostal or Methodist, all of these different churches, everyone believes ultimately in the same Jesus and God, but they have different rituals, or they have different sacraments, or they have different ways that they preach. And so we have a pastor that would preach at our church versus a priest. And we did find community here after having gone to a Spanish-speaking church at first, and then switching to an English-speaking church that meets down in Central Madrid. And I'm going to jump in to share some of the hardships that we have found as an American family who are believers. And so I am originally from New Jersey, but lived in the South for the majority of my life, besides Spain, and both in Jacksonville, Florida, so in that northern part of Florida, and then especially in Greenville, South Carolina, where our home is, where we would call home. It's considered the Bible Belt. And so there's a church on every corner. There's fellowship groups where you get together and read the Bible. There's women's groups. There's mission trips that are happening from your church, vacation Bible school. There are all these different Bible-based activities that families can participate in. And that does not exist the same here in Spain. And so I know our church here in Madrid does do a vacation Bible school. And I think there are other English-speaking churches that, have Bible groups, like my friend Paige, who may see this. They do book studies with other couples here in Spain. And so there are in all the cities in Spain, I'm sure, people that are leading these type of groups, but I would say generally speaking, the majority of Spanish families are not participating in a group like this because they're either Catholic, right? Or they're just choosing to not participate outside of the Sunday service. And so one of the things I want to make sure I share is that it's harder when you live abroad to find that Christian community. And for me, I always love reading passages about how Jesus and his disciples were always on the move. Like, they didn't stay in one spot. They didn't just stay in Nazareth forever, say as an example, and preach there and live and die in Nazareth. No, they were on the move all the time, making sure that different towns and areas and countries, ultimately, I mean, they weren't defined as countries then, but areas got to know the gospel that Jesus Christ was going to die for their sins. And because of that notion, I carry that in my heart, that it's okay that we live away from those type of groups and community that we love so much. Like, my husband led this amazing men's group that met weekly at our farmhouse. And it was such an encouragement to see 40 plus men praising God, but also just bringing that into their neighborhoods and work and homes. And so here it's hard to not have it. And so these are some of the creative ways that our family has tried to bring that here. And so one of them is we lead Wednesday night service, we call it, together. And so between just the 4 of our family members, we get a passage. Right now we're in Romans. My husband went on Wednesday night for Romans 5, and we just present what's on our heart for like 15-20 minutes in front of the family. So we just prepare like a small devotional. And for our boys, ages 12 and then now 10, Griffin, it's been so great just to see them present the Bible and how they read it. And it reminds our family to stay rooted, even though we don't have these men's groups, these women's groups, these mission trips, these things that kind of filled our buckets, we get to fill the buckets of our children. And so in this season, we call our children our ministry. Another really encouraging thing that I want to say, if you do live abroad, that I love, is that I'm a reminder that I get to be the face and hands and feet of Jesus here in Spain. When there's a lot of people who aren't believers in Spain. I mean, there's a lot of people who aren't believers in the US as well, but there are more churches, and I do think there is more availability of the gospel, at least in the southern area of the US where we're from. And so as an encouragement, if you are living abroad and you just kind of feel like you're not doing anything, how can you kind of be the hands and feet of Jesus? And I'm saying that to myself, because whether it's preparing a meal for a Spanish mom who's sick, or helping shepherd their children, if that's their interest, just other community events, just inviting them over for dinner and trying to speak Spanish for them, I feel like just shows the love of Christ. And so we have the opportunity to do that. I want to add too that one of the ways that we do stay connected to the Bible and our faith here in Spain is by sending our kids to an American Christian school. Now, there are benefits in sending your child to a Spanish school because you get that immersion in Spanish community and the language. We have gotten both of that actually in our small American Christian school here in Tres Cantos, because the families are mostly either from Central or South America, so native Spanish speakers. They're from Spain, or a couple more are from different areas around the globe, but for the most part, everyone is speaking Spanish. So our oldest son has become close to fluent just by going to this American Christian school. But the best part is, I would say 60% or so, maybe 50 of those families are believers. And so we get to have those conversations. Now, our Spanish hits a max, and I can't talk about Jesus any more than eres bueno, eres grande, right? I can say my words in Spanish that I know, but there are a lot of English-speaking families that are believers that go to our school. And so it's nice to have that fellowship. It's nice for them to send a text saying, I'm praying for you. They meet as a group also just to pray and do what we used to have in the US, like parents in prayer or moms in prayer. And so there is an ability to have your child in a Christian school abroad, if that's something on your heart too. And so for us, those are the fundamental differences. It's definitely the lack of availability of other believers. You have to have a core foundation in your family and rely as husband and wife with your children to help lead your children, besides the school supplement and church supplement. We do have that English-speaking Christian church here in Madrid that is filling our bucket in this season, and we really appreciate it here. And we just try to be mindful. And so when we go to churches like cathedrals around Spain, our pastor said to us a few weeks ago in a sermon, he said to the congregation, when you go into these Catholic cathedrals, regardless of whether you're Protestant or Methodist or Catholic or whatever your denomination is, just go in there and pray. Like, just don't take pictures of these beautiful cathedrals. Go in and make something of it and talk to the Lord and use it as quiet time. And so we just did that in Monaco when we visited over Christmas break. And these beautiful cathedrals are just a reminder that it's a sacred place that we can meet with Jesus, not just in our own bedroom or home. And so that is an encouragement to you. And so I want to look at some of your questions that you have about religion or faith here in Spain. And let's see, the first one says, were you actually able to find an English-speaking church in Madrid? And we were. There are a few. There's not many. I would say there's about 3 or 4. We visited most of them, and for every single person that I know, it's a better fit for one reason or another. It might be location, it might be the length of the sermon, it might be the sermon itself. And so after having gone to all the other English speaking churches, we found one that was a little closer to our home that we really enjoy. Now, for the first year, we did go to a Spanish-speaking church. We went to Hillsong Madrid. You probably heard of Hillsong if you are following along and are a believer. They're a Christian music group, and we really wanted to love it because we love their music style, but we just fully couldn't grasp the message. Even though they were converting the message in English in our ear, they would say funny things like, I don't remember what the Holy Spirit is saying, I can't translate this one, or whatever. So we just couldn't fully grasp the meaning of the importance of church in that season. So we're really happy to have found an English-speaking church. Someone's asking, do you go to church every week? And the answer is yes, we do. I mean, that has an asterisk next to us the same way it did in the US, because we travel a lot. My husband sometimes works in London and we go with him there for that. We have family that we meet up with in the US, or this year we're meeting up with family in Europe. And so, yeah, we go when we're here. And if we're not here, it's a way that we can take the Bible with us by doing our Romans series that we're in with the kids, that we will do home church wherever we travel. And so, yeah, we do make it a priority to go every week. Someone's asking, is it easy or hard to build friendships at your new church? And you know, I will say this one is harder in Spain, I think, than the US. Like in the US, we were able to easily jump in, start serving. Even though it is an English-speaking congregation, we haven't necessarily met people that, you know, we would want to have continued fellowship with, and a lot of it has to do with just honestly our busy schedules with running multiple companies, and our football schedule for the boys is very intense through the school week. So Sunday, it's almost like we're using it in this season church to refill our bucket instead of pouring out, which I know is not always the season we'll be in. But in this season, it's almost like that's how we're refilling. But I could see us totally getting involved in men's or women's or couples studies in the future. And we have had on our hearts before the desire to start some kind of weeknight, Wednesday night Bible study here in Valdebebas, in the area that we live in Madrid, for neighbors or English speakers that would want to join us here, or maybe Spanish speakers when our Spanish becomes a little better. And so we'll see what that turns into. Now, someone is asking, I'd love to hear some of the ways that you and your family have come to appreciate Catholic traditions. And I love this one because honestly, like, I didn't really know a lot about the Three Kings besides just the basic part in the story of the Christmas story. And I do think that this year was our first year, our second Christmas in Spain, but the first year we celebrated Three Kings along with those in Spain. And it was special to us. You know, we read more about the Three Kings story. We watched a movie called The Star, which is so cute for kids if you haven't seen it, that talks more about the three wise men. And so we also, with Semana Santa, we did not get to go to a procession this past year, but it's on kind of the top of my Spain bucket list to see an actual Catholic procession in Semana Santa this year. So we'll be in Malaga for spring break, and so I'm really hoping to participate in one of those there. And so, you know, I love learning about Catholic traditions. I love the interest that people have and the differences, right? Because that's what I love about living abroad, is that not everyone is kind of just doing the same thing every Sunday. Instead, it feels like I get to have this conversation with people and learn more about how they've been raised or what interests them in faith. And so we really have enjoyed embracing what we can. And then this person is asking, I'm a practicing Catholic. Would you say that it would be easier to raise children in the faith? So that was kind of our last question. Yes, you know, we have since, we were not, just a moment for our story, we were not believers when our oldest was 1 and 2. We actually became later in life believers. So we were, in our late 20s when my husband and I became believers. And my husband actually became a Christian through CrossFit gym, not a church. And I had grown up in the church, but kind of went my own way, and then had reunited with my husband kind of in faith at the same time. We were baptized on the same day as an adult. And so I believe that we are better spouses, parents, friends, daughters, neighbors, just anyone. We're just a better person when we are in faith and we have a relationship with Jesus. And one of having been both Catholic and a non-denominational Christian at some point of my life, the difference for me is that and this is just me, but when I was Catholic, I didn't necessarily have a relationship with God. I more so was just kind of, like doing the rosary beads because I had to. And I remember being in 8th grade and like having to do like the processions of the cross and just being like the stations of the cross and saying like, I just want to go home. Like for me, I just didn't enjoy those things. I just didn't have a connection with them. But it's when I truly had surrendered my life and had learned more about Jesus and having a relationship with him and letting the Holy Spirit guide our decisions and our next steps along in my marriage and my husband as well and our kids, because our kids have decided to be baptized, both of them as well, and accept Jesus. And so I just think everything has been not easier necessarily, but better. And so I think it's an incredible decision for parents to decide to raise their children in faith. I think it gives, especially as we have moved our kids from one side of the world to another, it gives them a foundation, and it makes things on earth seem so much more temporary in a good way, in an exciting way, because, I love exploring God's creation, and I feel like a lot of people think that when we die, right, it's over. But it's almost like when you have Christ in you and a relationship with him, you realize that like your life is just going to be beginning then. I mean, if everything here is so beautiful and cool and it's so fun to experience new things, I can't even imagine, how heaven will be. And so, yes, raising our children and having a Christ-centered marriage has been the best decision that we have made. And so thank you for coming alongside this discussion today. I'd love to know your comments and any more questions that you have about this topic, because, we did come in a missional capacity to Spain. We came for this American Christian school here. And so this is our heart, is to be part of this community. We could have just stayed in the US and continued doing what we were doing, and that's not what we were called to do. It's totally awesome for families that are called to just can kind of continue doing what they're doing. But we were called to step away from that and to step into a season of living in Spain. And it's been a blessing. It's been honestly one of the greatest privileges of my life and our family's lives. And we love so much about this beautiful culture, and we're so grateful to be here. And so I will be back next week with another episode. If you and your family are thinking of moving to Spain, I'd love to connect. And so just comment the word Spain in the comments, and I'm happy to connect with you about my course or having on a call of how our family was able to move to Spain. And for now, signing off, but looking forward to seeing you next week. Ciao.